Hey guys, Infidel1258. Today I want to get into some more questions from the comment section. If you're new to my channel, we do this regularly where we go through the comments on various videos, and if there's anything there with meat on the bones, I'd love to get into it. I like to answer questions that are going to maybe even be challenging, convicting. There's maybe some two sides to the conversation, and maybe even like a tinge of salt to it, because frankly we need to confront those big issues so that we can better understand what we're dealing with Splinterlands or any topic. And so never be afraid of argument. I like to get into it, and today we're going to get into something that's probably not so controversial, but it's got a lot, there's a lot of angles to it. So we're going to discuss SPS as a rank reward. We're going to discuss how the auto staking on the SPS and what that might mean for things like the rental market. Also, even like price valuation predictions on SPS and DEC in the short term, and discussing which one's a better hold or a sell at this time. So if that sounds interesting, stick around, stay tuned, like and subscribe. Okay, so I just was going through the comment section and I saw two that grabbed me. The first two comments that I saw, and I thought they were related enough and they were connected to one kind of idea that I just shared with you that I think is going to merit its own video. And so we'll send some love to these two guys after the fact. But and that's the thing too, guys, leave your IGN when you do drop a comment, and if I answer that question, I will send you a little thank you afterwards. So Zenonia Knight said, this change in the game is good, but how big will it affect the rental market? Because you still need to wait 1 week to get 1/4 of your rewards. As I see it, it is better to hold SPS for the future than to burn them. When do you think it's good to burn SPS and when not? So there's actually there's three different main questions there, and probably little tangents we could run away with, but let's try and focus in on the idea of what the new SPS rank rewards will do for the rental market, and this concept that it takes a week to get 1/4 of your daily rewards because you have to unstake it. I think that's worth almost a few minutes, because he's right about the fact that, first of all, your SPS is going to be auto staked into your account. And so what that'll mean is that, actually, I've earned some SPS here so far. This will be my first time really looking at it. I think these are stake rewards. Okay, here we go. So look, rank battle rewards. Unclaimed SPS rewards, when claimed, will be staked directly to your account. This is from my Infidel1258 account. As you can see, from the wild, I've earned 3.248 from just rank battles, and from modern, just less than 1/4 of an SPS. And that equals to 3.4. And now I press the claim all button and it'll be put into my wallet, but it'll be staked. And so to his point, that's not liquid, and that is going to have ramifications for the rental market, because many people who play the game need to pay for their cards through the rental market. How are they doing that if they don't have a daily influx of income from playing the game? And so ever since we've had a rental market in Splinterlands, the beauty of that market is that you can, if you had startup capital, and it wouldn't have taken much, like a few hundred DEC, then you could rent some cards and get started playing the game, and then you could earn that DEC back through daily and season rewards, and repeat. But now we can't necessarily do it that way, because this is your value is being locked up. And I think the bigger point is not just that it's being locked up and, hey, what's that going to do to the rental market? But we have to go a step further in explaining how this is a barrier. It's not just the idea that you need to wait a week to get 1/4 of your rewards. It's actually worse than that in a sense, because how can I articulate this in a concise manner? When you start unstaking, so right now on my Infidel account, I have 35,000 SPS. No, I have 25,000 SPS staked. Just under 26,000. If I go unstake, I can choose the full amount if I want, max, and that's every SPS I have. Or I can do 75%, 50, or 25, or whatever number I want. If I want to unstake 1,000, I can do that. and then I have to hit press on stake. If I do 1,000 and I press on stake across 4 weeks, I'm going to get 25% of that unstake. And so that would mean 250 SPS every week for the next 4 weeks. Imagine you're living paycheck to paycheck within Splinterlands, right? Your rentals are being paid for by your daily DEC. And then now this system comes into place. That's not possible. And you can't even, once you unstake today's payment, you can't unstake tomorrow's payment. What does that mean? So if today you got like 5 SPS for payment and you need that SPS as soon as possible to pay for rental cards, you're going to go 5 and you're going to hit unstake. But after that happens, you can't tomorrow start a new unstaking. There's only one unstake. There's not multiple. You can't unstake 5 today, unstake 5 more tomorrow, unstake 5 the following day. That's not how this works. And it's deeply important that we understand this, because he's right. This is going to have big ramifications for the rental market, because this is going to dry up a lot of liquid cryptocurrency that's being issued to players that's ultimately funding rental cards. I can't see how this won't affect rental card prices. And at least in the short term, because there's an audience of people, like I say, that are, metaphorically speaking, living paycheck to paycheck, paying for rental cards to play the game with, that they're with the funds they've earned from the last 24 hours of this game. And you can't necessarily wait 4 weeks to receive today's paycheck. And more than that, if you wait 4 weeks to get today's paycheck, tomorrow's paycheck, the following day's paycheck, for the next 3 weeks and 6 days, none of those paychecks can be requested. Do you see what I mean? Because you can't unstake every day. You can only unstake 5 today and wait for that to be delivered in 4 weeks' time, which is 1.25 SPS per week, every week. So this is going to be an impediment to rental, I would think, for the short term. And I say short term because at the end of a season, I would imagine that this is going to result in kind of a place where everybody could set an unstake at that moment. So if you do have the currency to kind of fund your startup essentially and get to a place where you can have a rental deck that can reach to a reasonable league level and receive meaningful rewards by the end of the season, when you get hopefully a good amount of SPS at one time, you can save up your rank battle rewards until the end of season. Simultaneously, you can save up the rank battle rewards that are going to come in those end of season chests, and then you can maybe do one big unstake. It's going to be relatively big. It's not going to be, for some people it'll be small, and for others it'll be massive, but it's going to be bigger than doing 1 day of unstake. Or better yet, if you could just get to a place where you've got like a month, let's say, of SPS saved up, 2 seasons perhaps, and then do an unstake, I would imagine that's going to translate into a meaningful payout on a weekly basis that's going to hopefully be able to, it's going to have to be adequate to pay for your rentals so that you can continue carrying forward in the same model we've always been, where it's almost earn some money playing the game, put that money directly back into more rental cards, earn more money, put that back in, earn more money, put that back in. And that's been great for the rental market. It's been great for card owners. It's been great for players who want to claim that extra margin, because you are earning something above and beyond the cost of the cards. You're earning your own cards that you're going to get to keep forever, or that one day will generate rental revenues or sale value for you. So the players who are doing this reinvestment of their rank rewards are accumulating something, if they're wise, if they're holding on to those rank reward cards and so on. But I kind of don't see how there's going to be an audience of people who don't know how to navigate this and who are going to find this very like a friction point. And so that is a problem. And I do think it's going to translate to short-term rental price decreases, I would think, because it'll translate to some people who can't compete anymore. They don't have that startup fund and therefore can't participate in the rental market and don't have that. They can't continue moving forward, and I imagine they'll need to do what they're able it might pull them back. It might cause them to use fewer and fewer cards, competing at a lower level, receiving fewer rewards until they kind of snowball into a bigger place, possibly. Now we are talking about, like, I suspect $1, like $1 would be enough to fund you for a season and get you the meaningful rewards. So we're talking about an audience of people that would be really, really financially strapped. I'm not talking to my American brothers and Canadian brothers who like $1 for DEC, or, you know, if you want to buy, if you can buy Splinter Shards in here, you can buy credits in here. If you can put in $5, you're going to be fine. But I'm saying, like, if we have constantly been reaching out to Southeast Asia as an audience, there's been ad campaigns there. There's been like a Filipino community that really is thriving here. There's been like Southeast Asia is a target for us, and it's an audience we want to welcome and invite in and help thrive. And some of those people don't have the same. In fact, many of those people don't have the same wealth and affluence that we have access to in North America or even in Europe. And so I wonder what the short-term ramifications of this new rank reward will be upon them. That's one point I really wanted to spend some time on, because I think it's one thing to understand that your unstaking is going to translate into 1/4 of a payment every week, but it's another thing to remember that you can't unstake today and then again tomorrow and then the following day and have 3 or 4 different paychecks coming to you. That if only that were possible, but it isn't. You have to unstake one time and wait 4 weeks for that payment to be received in full. So that's a big point, and I think it's going to have some. It's going to be a friction point for the coming weeks, I would think. As I see it, better hold. And then he finishes by saying, "As I see it, it's better to hold SPS for the future than to burn them." And he's talking burning them for the purpose of because in the implication of burning them in order to get DEC, in order to fund that rental market, those rental market acquisitions, I would definitely agree it's better to hold SPS than to burn them, especially at this price. With the DEC burn mechanic, it sounds, the way that I understand it, if you burn $1 worth of SPS, which would be roughly 20 SPS, then you're going to get 1,000 DEC. Right now, that's not even $1 US fiat value. So you'd be burning $1 of SPS to get less than $1 of DEC. So right now, it makes no sense. And yes, I trust that the DEC is going to return to peg. In fact, it's been rapidly returning to peg, but that doesn't mean I would want to make that trade at this moment. And so I definitely think hold SPS for the future. But the question is, for those people who are in a pinch, who need that daily funding to continue their earning opportunities here, I think they might be then handcuffed into possibly burning, or for that matter, forget about burning, they could just sell it into the marketplace, right? You could sell $1 SPS into the marketplace and get it would be more than 1,000 DEC at this point, because the DEC is below peg. And so when do you think it's a good time to burn and when is not? So I feel like I answered that, but I wouldn't burn my SPS until such time that the DEC returned to peg. In the meantime, you could use things like Hive Engine and move into Hive Engine, hive-engine.com, and you get into you'd have to log in using your keys, and you come into you'd send your SPS into your Hive Engine, and you would come in here and you would just trade some SPS, and you would sell it. These guys are buying right here. These people are buying, and this guy right here is buying, 1,000 SPS for that price. You could just click on that, and then you would be selling. So you've auto clicked on his price point. That number is going to populate right in the price, and then you just type in however many you want. He's asking for 1,613. You could go ahead and sell 1,600 if you have that many, right? Oh, it's not Hive. 1,613, and then that's gonna that would be almost completing his transaction, and you'd be receiving 164 Hive. But for you, that would be the path to do that. If you wanted to trade $5 or $10 worth of SPS, you would do it, and you would get a Hive, and then you trade that into DEC so you could use it in the marketplace for rentals. And then there was one more comment that I thought was related enough to touch on here. Juan Jose says, which token is better to hold and which is to sell as of right now, SPS or DEC? And I mean, this is a complicated question, and nobody knows all the answers to this. Definitely, and I'm fully in that. Like I am making my best guesses at every moment, and you should too, using as many fundamental considerations as you can bring to the table, as you can possibly imagine and muster in that conversation. I would argue that there is a lot of great reasons to be holding SPS, and for that matter, to be holding DEC at this moment. I would argue that DEC at its current price point of just under 800 Satoshis is like, it's still what, like, roughly, it's a substantial amount below peg, and I think we're going to see a return to peg. And so I don't know the exact percentage of increase that would be available to you there, but moving from 0.00797 to 0.001 is a significant bump in appreciation, and I think that's going to be available to us in the near future. So DEC, you might say, is a strong hold at this moment, and I would argue that that's the case. Not just because I think that this new rank reward system is going to allow DEC to get there, not just because I think DEC is desired, not just because DEC is no longer being printed in the rank battles. All of those are great reasons, but also because even if you had DEC at this price today, you would always have the outlet of buying Chaos Legion packs, and that is in and of itself a peg. It's an outlet for you to have, is to spend DEC at peg value. 4,000 DEC equals one pack, regardless of whether you paid, 1 Satoshi for those, or 1,000 Satoshis for those DEC. And Splintoshis is the word I'm trying to say there, not Satoshi. But that's what Aggie calls them. They're Splintoshis. And so yeah, this is a peg opportunity. And so I would argue DEC is a strong hold in this moment. In the long term, I suspect you shouldn't be anticipating some sort of moon mission for DEC. So I would argue that a short-term opportunity, maybe a medium-term opportunity, exists with DEC, especially while these packs are still on the marketplace. But I would argue that SPS has perhaps even more upside potential in maybe the medium to long term, and yes, even the short term, but probably focusing on the medium or long term. So where does SPS's value proposition come from? Of course, we've got Rift Watchers coming, and you're going to need SPS for that purpose. There are going to be a devoted audience of people that are going to buy, I think, millions of dollars worth of packs. There's $15 million worth of Rift Watcher packs that are going to be sold. I suspect 3 to 5 million will sell really rapidly, and that will require an acquisition of SPS that will drive SPS prices, I would argue. Now that's a thesis of mine, and I feel strongly about it, but so far SPS has gone from roughly 8 cents to 5 cents in the last 2 weeks or so. So it feels like to you as a viewer, or if you're holding SPS, you might feel shaken already by that drop in price. But I would argue Rift Watchers is just around the corner. That will cause buying pressure for you. That's going to hopefully help the price point. And I would argue that even if that doesn't, I think long-term, medium-long-term, the fact that there are so many new burn mechanics for SPS, whether it's burning SPS into DEC, whether it's SPS being burnt for validator node purchases, or there was one more, SPS being burned for, SPS being burned, not burned, but locked away through the Rift Watcher's purchase. So that's the Rift Watcher, the desirability of the Rift Watcher pack themselves, the SPS being staked away, locked away in that DAO through the purchase of those packs, and the SPS being burnt for DEC, and the SPS being burnt through validator node purchases. All of those are new mechanics to the game that I think are going to be long-term positive forces for the value of SPS. Not to mention actually governance too. Governance is coming soon, and that is going to create new excitement around holding this token, because we're going to want to have a voice in that. So I would argue in the short term, it feels like the safer, more interesting, or not more interesting, but safer short-term look is just at DEC from the perspective of it almost is a lock that it's going to return to peg, and if it doesn't, it already is at peg through Splinterlands buying packs, and SPS is more of a long-term or medium-term play with a short-term opportunity around Rough Watchers. But I think the long-term thing with SPS is the really exciting thing, because I don't care if it goes from 5 cents to 10 cents. I don't care if it goes from 5 cents to 50 cents. What I'm thinking is when will it reach $5? And I'm sincere about that. And I think that might be, who knows if that's 5 years, 10 years away, but I'm going to be here when that's happening. And I will one day see that, I suspect. So that's my view around it. So to answer the question, I don't know that I would sell either of them, but I'm in a different place than some of you. And like I said, if you're living kind of quote unquote paycheck to paycheck within Splinterlands to support your own play through your rank rewards, selling either SPS or DEC to fund that mechanic, then I mean, maybe your hands are tied. I would argue if you could just put in a few dollars to try and fund your own, kind of start that process and get yourself to a place where you've got a bit of margin and almost you reset on this new SPS economy to the point where you can get a decent amount of SPS that you can begin unstaking, so that you can have this resource to draw upon, because you're going to be capped now once per week. So that's going to be the tricky bit. But if you've got a few dollars to invest in, say, credits, that would be maybe a short-term avenue to satisfy that need. And I would say try and hold as much of both as you could. I think, like I say, I'm not really focusing on DEC at this moment. I'm all in on SPS and thinking I want $1 million one day. And maybe that's where I'll leave it. Thank you so much, Juan and Zenonia. I appreciate your comments. And guys, thank you so much for your time and attention. Have an amazing day. I'm going to send a little thank you to both these guys here. And I'll leave it at that. Okay, guys, have an amazing day. God bless.